Welcome to the Back to Me podcast, where we help multicultural incoming freshman women and men manage their entire college experience throughout post-graduation to successfully transition into entrepreneurship and corporate workspaces as new hires.
Back to me. Oh, I turned it around. I'm back to me. I finally figured it out. I'm back to me. So when you think you have nothing, back to me. I go back to me. Yeah, I'm back to me.
Hello, everyone. It's your host, Yoli Tamu. When you think about selecting your career pathway, the trade and transportation industry offers an array of opportunities that may already be aligned with your current talents and skills. In this week's episode, we are joined by Dr. Tom O'Brien, Executive Director of the Center for International Trade and Transportation at California State University, Long Beach. Dr. O'Brien shares how students of various cultural backgrounds and experiences are in a great position to take advantage of the opportunities that await them. Find out what resources are available to you and get a jump start in this industry that promotes economic vitality while highlighting your talent. Enjoy. Welcome, Dr. O'Brien. How are you?
I am great. Thank you for having me, Yoli.
Absolutely. Thank you for taking the time. And this particular career that we're going to talk about, not too many students really think about it. You know, we kind of go for the classy, sexy jobs, if you will, the ones that are out there out front most of the time, whether it's education or medicine. Don't you think so?
I agree, but I'm going to try to make the case that trade and transportation is just as sexy and interesting as those other jobs. That's my mission.
I love it. Let's do it. I love it. I love it. Okay. So now for students that have been exposed to it slightly, considering a career in international trade and transportation, as we said, is just not often talked about. So who or what inspired you to just pursue this profession and even inspire students to follow in your path?
I sort of fell into it. The crazy thing is that transportation touches all of our lives every day, right? We ride on the road infrastructure, we ride on buses, we get goods delivered to us at our homes. And for me, I had a really, I won't say basic, it was a great foundation in liberal arts. I studied government and history and languages, but I wasn't quite sure what to do with that. And after I graduated college, I went into the Peace Corps. And I learned a little bit about the importance of urban planning, and that put me on a path to a master's degree in planning. And from planning, I found transportation. So it wasn't entirely intentional and it wasn't entirely direct, but that's okay. That's what happens with a lot of students.
Absolutely. We find our way as we go.
That's right.
Very cool. And then what inspired you to just pay it forward to students? What made you want to make that your goal, to go after students?
Well, when I was in the Peace Corps, I taught high school English, and I found that I absolutely loved the classroom. And I found that it was the best way for me to share my passions in whatever I was studying. And so when that landed me in transportation, the education connection to transportation was a natural fit for me. And because I get the chance to spend part of my days, with truck drivers or on the docks with workers or with people who design technology systems or cybersecurity systems, I can bring all of that back to the classroom and sort of tell students that transportation is so much more than just, a bus, a truck, a highway. It's all of the people that connect to it that make it work.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you're bringing that up because I wanted to take a deeper dive into actually what is the career and the profession. What are those options? So you and we spoke before about different freight types. So I wanted to kind of go through that. And if you can explain some of those freight types and maybe some of those career options within those types.
Sure. Right. So transportation, people often think about it as moving people and moving goods from point A to point B. Right. And so that could be, the big ocean going vessels that you see off the shore of the West Coast where I am in Los Angeles and Long Beach. It could be the e-commerce that is connected to whatever we buy on our phones, right, or on the internet. That's an aspect of transportation, that small package. We move goods in airplanes through air cargo. Petroleum products are moved. That's a means of transport as well. So all of those are connected to the transportation network. And students who work in this area tend to approach it in a number of different ways, right? You have the engineers who build the systems, right? And that includes the technology-based intelligent transportation systems, the data collection that when you have smart highways, right? Or the people who capture data from our phones and our purchases to better predict our behavior, where and how we're going to buy things and what transportation that's going to set in motion. There are people who approach transportation as planners. That's what I did. I got my master's and PhD in planning. And so for me, it's about the processes and the people and the impacts of the transportation system on local communities. There are computer scientists who dig into the design of the systems, who track it, who capture data, who are involved in cybersecurity, making sure that the systems are safe from people who may want to do harm. All of these things are aspects of transportation, and they're all very much needed. The people who are interested in social sciences, right, the social work, are interested in knowing how transportation systems impact local communities and to make sure that there are disproportionate impacts on certain communities, because a lot of people don't want trucks moving through their communities, understandably, right? So how do we balance those needs? We need professionals who can work with communities on these topics.
This is great. So it's almost like the international trade and transportation field is consisting of these like branches. If you think about the military, you know what I mean? You can actually fit in different categories. So this is good to know and good to hear. So do you actually sit down with a student or with a counselor, maybe to kind of pull out their initial passions and where they fit in these so-called areas?
Yeah, so at the high school level, the really cool thing is that increasingly students in K-12 are getting exposed to this. We work really closely with the Port of Long Beach and Long Beach Unified School District on a logistics academy in one of the high schools. So, the students there get exposed to the language of logistics. I mean, they live near the ports of Long Beach and Los Angeles, and so they see all that's happening around them. Our goal is to help them understand it and translate it into something that is meaningful to them, whatever their passions might be, right? We're taking something that's in their backyard and helping them connect it to a career pathway. But even for students who haven't really decided what they want to do, if they get to the university and are interested in business, for example, right, we can connect them and find a way for them to turn that interest in finance or operations into something that directly benefits trade and transportation, because it's a huge employer in a part of California and a part of the US where a lot of the goods that are produced overseas enter, right? So we have a lot of logistics related jobs here. So once our students come to college and they say, I want to do something with accounting, well, I can tell them there is a whole world of small, medium, and large size companies who need your help in understanding global financial transactions, because trade and transportation is international in nature. You are working with people in Asia, in Latin America, in other parts of North America, in Europe, because global trade is just that. It's global in nature.
Very cool. Now, as a college student, are there internships that are offered, and maybe do they travel abroad in some of these programs?
Yes. So internships are a great opportunity to learn more about this industry and to sort of hone your skills. And this is what I would call a seller's market, right? If you have skills and an interest, there's a company that's going to want to build that talent. Because as we saw during the pandemic, trade has an impact. People want their goods, and sometimes those are goods that are critical to our daily lives, medical supplies. And so keeping the goods flowing is something that companies need to do, and they need talent to be able to do that. And they're looking for everywhere from high school grads to college grads to people with masters and PhDs. There is a role, I think, to be played for everybody who has an interest in this field. There are opportunities for overseas work, not often tied to the internships, but some of the companies that are involved in global trade have offices around the world. And if that's something you want to do, and I would encourage young people to do it when they're just out of school, when you have some flexibility, some freedom, you don't have maybe a family yet, involved in global trade is a great way to start because you may demonstrate talents and skills that could be valuable in different parts of the world. And I'll also make a pitch for learning languages. If you are learning a language, if you speak another language at home, whatever it might be, that is a tremendous asset that companies will want because they're going to want to know how to speak, how to work with, and the unique ways of doing business in different parts of the world. I just did a mentoring session with our high school students, and one of the things we talked about was the importance of understanding business card protocols and practices when you're dealing with counterparts in other parts of the world. How do you hand somebody a business card? How do you receive it? Is really important. It shows respect. It demonstrates your understanding of the way they work. And that's a skill that you have to learn. And making it known to a potential employer that you have an awareness and an openness to learning about different cultures and different business practices will take you a long way.
That's incredible. So you're actually developing social skills as well.
Oh, most definitely. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Because on this podcast, we serve the college student that's incoming, an incoming freshman, and they're dealing with the whole navigational process of a new experience for the first time and the anxiety that goes with that. And then we have that postgraduate, heading out into the workforce, and they still have the anxiety of developing social skills and navigating those worlds. So that's great to hear that you have these types of mentorship workshops for them, outside of the field itself, but just in general to serve them as a human being, which is great.
Yeah, that's really important. And companies know that they need to cultivate talent over time too. No one person has all the skills that a company is likely to need. And in many cases, the company wants to train you on the unique culture and practices of their particular company. So you'll always have an opportunity to learn. And in fact, letting your potential employer know that that's one of the things that you like about maybe working with them is an opportunity to build your skill sets will speak volumes to them, right? That when I'm in hiring students, that willingness to learn and the willingness to maybe fail is actually a positive because it means that you're open to trying new things. And that's the only way you're going to grow.
That's fantastic. You're open and willing. Now, you say you hire students as interns, or sometimes they walk into full-time positions?
Yeah, so we have projects that are funded that require student support because it's a project that's intended on building student research and writing and customer service skills. But I also have students on our campus who work with us as part of the internship requirement for their program, right? So they have to do a certain number of hours. I just hired one of those students who was working with us as an intern. He really demonstrated himself. He had some of those language skills I talked about. He took initiative. And when we had a position, I offered it to him. I knew his work ethic. I knew his talents. And I knew that he would be willing to take on new challenges. So that's the best of all possible worlds, right? When I'm able to see a student transition into something that's more permanent. There's nothing any better. That's what we're supposed to be doing in the university.
Yeah. And it's so valuable what you're saying that you took the time and you had developed a relationship. So you kind of knew who the student was. So for a new student that's being exposed to this field for the first time, what would you say would be their entry point? I mean, because sometimes they wouldn't even know this exists on your campus. So should they take it upon themselves to ask their academic counselors about all possibilities? I mean, who would be that starting guide, if you will, for this?
Guidance counselors are a great place to start. And we try to work with guidance counselors so they understand too the benefits of trade and transportation. But I do a couple of really basic things. I encourage students every day to look at a newspaper online, their local newspaper, and see what the issues are. For trade and transportation, it's really easy in Southern California. We see delays at the ports. We hear about truck driver shortages. So it's going to be in the news and they're going to become much more conversant. If their parents allow it and they're young students, I would get a LinkedIn account and join a couple of the discussion or interest groups related to trade and transportation so you can see what the topics are and what people are discussing. Right here now in Southern California, you can learn a lot about the labor contract negotiations between the dock workers, right, and the terminal operators, right? That's going to give you tremendous amount of insight. And then when you land on a college campus, you're going to be a lot more prepared to go into a program and think, how can I use this interest in a way that serves, the needs of my program, right? One of the great things that the internships do is that they provide real world experience for maybe a paper in your class, right? That's one of the things that the student I just hired did. He worked for me and was able to use some of that material and content for some of the papers in his class, right? So he's making the work he's doing in a traditional academic setting a lot more meaningful. But, there's lots of different national organizations that you can find out about. You can subscribe to the Journal of Commerce, or there's a free daily news feed with the Journal of Commerce, but that's sort of like Time or Newsweek, but for the trade and transportation sector. And you get a sense of how global trade and commerce matters to our national economy. And, if you walk into an interview and you say, I was reading in the Journal of Commerce that the impact of the labor negotiations on the West Coast moved traffic to the East Coast ports, boy, you're going to be front of the line for whatever position you're hiring. It's an easy thing to do. So much is available on the internet.
To research. That's powerful stuff. I'm glad you're sending them to LinkedIn. So, would you encourage a freshman to set up a LinkedIn account like ASAP, even a high school senior, right? Can start.
Yeah, I just caution, I know that they need to make sure that, particularly if they're not yet in college, that their parents are okay with them with having accounts. But when I talk to parents, I say that of all the social media, that's the one that will be most beneficial to them throughout their careers, certainly now. And the other thing that most definitely for college freshmen is getting that account is going to be the way to build their network. And they're going to find out what local events are being hosted by trade associations and business associations. And then they can use LinkedIn to reach out and say, by the way, could you use any volunteers? Because if I'm willing to work your front desk, if you let me in the door and I can be part of the event. All of the associations I work with make that opportunity available to students. And LinkedIn is a great way to be connected to these organizations. Many of them have free or really low cost student rates. Get in while you can, and you're going to build your network from the outset.
That's fantastic. So take advantage of the private message option in LinkedIn and get in touch.
Yeah.
With these directors and such. I love this. Well, this has been great. I think you did make it very attractive, this profession. I think you did.
I hope so.
Absolutely. And I'm just so glad and honored to have you. And so, as we wrap up, we're always, thinking about words of encouragement for a young person who's just, just seeking to expand their horizons and consider careers just outside of the norm, whatever that norm is for that person. So do you have advice for someone that's on that search or that journey?
Yeah, the great thing about what we do in trade and transportation is that there's a home for everyone, given your skill sets. And you don't have to decide right now, but as I said earlier, be open and willing to connect your skills and talents with this industry. Transportation touches us every single day. We can't get where we want to go without transportation. We can't get the clothes that we wear on our back without some mode of conveyance, a truck, a plane, a boat, getting it to us. And everything that's involved with getting it from point A to point B depends upon a wide range of skills and talents. The other thing I'll say is that this is a great industry that allows for economic mobility, right? There are jobs you can start at a very entry level and advance over the course of your career. And that's the real advantage for, what we're trying to promote, the economic vitality of our regions and our nation as a whole. And this is a generation that is well equipped to offer a lot to this particular industry. We saw in the pandemic a lot of challenges, a lot of delays in the transportation system. We need people who think creatively. We need people from a wide range of experiences and backgrounds. And this is the generation that's well positioned to do it, well poised to do it. So take on the challenge. I don't think you'll be disappointed.
This is so good. So thank you so very much. Now, if they want to reach out to you, where should they go? LinkedIn, of course. And where else would you like to send them?
LinkedIn, you can always reach me through the Cal State Long Beach CITT website. We've got a lot of information there. I'm always willing to take in, people shoot me an email. I'm happy to set up informational interviews, which is another good way for the students to learn. So that's tom.o'brien@csulb.edu, tom.obrien@csulb.edu. And, we'll start the networking.
I love this. Thank you so much. Thank you for just taking my call. I'm so glad that Will, recommended you.
No, thanks for the work you do. It's really important. So
Thank you. I appreciate you. Okay. Well, we will be in touch very soon. And I really appreciate your time.
Oh, no, thanks for inviting me.
All right. You take care.
Take care. Bye.
Bye. Thank you for joining us. If a career in this industry interests you, contact your school guidance counselor to learn more and get started. For more information about other episodes, remember to subscribe to the Back to Me podcast, College and Beyond. I'm your host, Yoli Tamu. Leave a review at the end of this podcast. And if you would like to learn more about other special events, join the Back to Me podcast Facebook group or simply text Back to Me to 833-206-4565. Until next time, be well.
Back to me. Oh, I turned it around. I'm back to me.